honor and a privilege to be standing in front of you on this very important occasion where we'll be launching the series of conversation which is Indian Education Dialogues. And I'm very, very grateful to all of you for gracing this occasion with your presence, and we look forward to interacting with you. Now, to set a little bit of context about the India Education Dialogues and the conversation that we want to have with you, as you all may be aware, the landscape of Indian education is fast changing. The way we looked at education perhaps a decade earlier is not the same way that we're looking at education today. And something that has contributed in the very, very recently to this reimagining of Indian education is the National Education Policy 2020. The National Education Policy 2020 marks a very watershed moment in the context of the education landscape in India, where it wants to reimagine Indian education, through inclusion and equality, equity, and excellence in education. Now, how do we look at Indian higher education institutions in the context of this vision that NEP proposes, and what kind of role that institutions such as ours, OP Jindal Global University, which has been recognized by Government of India as an institution of eminence, can play and has been playing and has the potential to play in this reimagination. Now, if you look at national education policy, we've had 3 national education policies till date, right? We had one in 1968, we have the second policy in 1986, and nearly 34 years after the second policy, we are now looking at the third one, which came in 2020. And it marks a sort of massive departure from the way the earlier education policies have imagined education. In the context of higher education, the National Education Policy proposes sweeping changes. It talks about opening up higher education to foreign universities. It talks about regulatory changes. It talks about introducing 4-year multidisciplinary undergraduate program. It talks about a flexible entry-exit options for undergrad students. It talks about an academic bank of credit, right, where their pool of credit will be recorded. It talks about multidisciplinary research-driven institutions. In fact, it talks about phasing out institutions who are dedicated to one stream, and by 2040 moving towards completely multidisciplinary institutions of higher education. It also proposes very significant changes at the school education level. Unlike the 1986 National Education Policy that pushed for a 10+2 structure, the National Education Policy 2020 proposes for a 5+3+3+4. And it focuses on vocational education, it focuses on experiential learning and critical thinking at the level of school education. Now, in this context, I would like to invite Professor Dr. C. Rajkumar, Founding Vice Chancellor, OP Jindal Global University, a leading educationist in India, who has been able to drive the imagination of higher education in India, from the establishment of the Jindal Global Law School in 2009 to setting up 12 schools as part of OP Jindal Global University today in 2022, and making OP Jindal Global University one of the top globally recognized institutions in the world. So with that, I would like to invite Professor Dr. C. Rajkumar to address the gathering here and talk about the topic at hand.